Joe Biden, the guy who signed the TikTok ban into law. It's very important to bring this up. That a lot of people try to say that, oh, you can't blame Biden for this. Yes, you can. It was
Yes, you
like
can.
he was the
Yes, you can.
president. The buck stops with him, no one else. And
Yeah.
I saw people say, I think John, I saw it on your video where you talked about this. People were saying, well, they hid it in like a funding bill. Whether that's true or not doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. You're the president. You know what's in the bill. You're.
I'm sorry, I couldn't read the bill I was saying. What
kind of excuse is that?
He's the most powerful man in the world. Stop treating him like you're a 12-year-old nephew.
They don't even have to read it, guys. They can just be briefed. They can be briefed
exactly
on it. Honestly.
Yes, people get paid a lot of money to read through hundreds of pages of a boring text. And listen, you listening to my voice right now, honestly, it doesn't matter how old you are. Your signature means something, right? Your signature carries a hell of a lot of weight. The course of your life could be altered by signing a piece of paper. That applies times a million to Joe Biden, okay? If he can't be held responsible for this, I don't know why we put him in the position. So, yeah, it's Biden's fault that he did it. And him coming around and says, well, maybe I'll just kick the can down the road. It is perfectly emblematic of Joe Biden's term in office. We're going to get to that, later on the show. But Rio, I believe you're hearing this for the first time. What's your reaction now?
No, like, here's the thing, dude. I'll tell you guys what my opinion is, and it might be way out in left field. I feel like this is weird ego pageantry, basically ego campaigning against each other between Trump and Biden, both not wanting to be held publicly responsible. It's optics. They don't want to be held publicly responsible for destroying TikTok. And so they're trying to pass the hot potato to each other. I'm not going to fucking ban. I'm going to do that. And so I feel like that's my opinion. I feel like this is an attempt at making kind of maybe whitewashing Joe's ego. You know what I mean? Like, before he leaves. That's how I'm taking it. Is that weird? Is that too weird?
So I unfortunately have to report, and I really hate to say this because even speaking it into existence is harmful to me. But I know what's happening here. Mm-hmm. And once you hear this, I think you're going to agree with me. This is exactly precisely what happened. I think that the primary impetus for the entire TikTok ban, while, we like to talk a lot about Palestine and all of the free speech and all of this, definitely plays a factor in this. Don't get me wrong. But what has become clear to me is that this is a fucking power move for American companies to buy TikTok. What happened is that the US government was like, yep, we're going to do this so that Meta or someone can step up and buy TikTok, because obviously that's what TikTok is going to do. That's what what happened with Grindr when we did the same thing with Grindr. And then TikTok was like, fuck you. I'm going to call your bluff. And the American government was like, what do you mean? No one's ever done that to us before. And now they're sitting here like, well, shit. It looks like they're really going to call our bluff, and people are pissed. And that's going to have egg on our face. So we got to scramble to stop this from happening. I think that's the clearest explanation of what's going on here, and why I always said I'm not very worried about TikTok going anywhere, because there's too much money tied up in this thing. That's kind of what we're seeing play out here. I mean, they thought they had a power play. TikTok called their bluff, and they realized, oh, fuck, we need TikTok more than TikTok needs us. Which
so
is
you think
a good thing, but
so you think they're just gonna keep kicking the can?
Yeah,
keep trying to.
You know how like every time you have like had to get a new ID, they've like told you for the past 20 fucking years that you have to get a real ID or you won't be able to fly.
Yeah.
And then every time you go to fly, it's like, oh no, we can use your normal ID without the real ID. Yeah, that like this is what they fucking do. Like it was all a fucking stunt. They just gonna kick the can. They might get some deal. They might get like I don't know. I don't know what's gonna end up happening, but my level of TikTok isn't going anywhere, or if it goes somewhere, it'll go somewhere very briefly, is higher than it's been all week as of today.
Interesting. Okay. What do you think, T-Dad?
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad theory. I'm more just bewildered at the dedication to looking stupid. Just absolutely dedicated, because maybe they gambled like, well, TikTok's not going to call our bluff, ByteDance. They'll take the money rather than shutting down completely. But you really got to have a contingency plan in case they don't do that, right? You got to have some kind of idea of what you're going to do besides, oh, my bad. I know that I said this a year ago that this is not new information. This was going to happen, but I don't want it to happen. Trump, you take care of that. And this also, how dedicated are these folks to making the party fall apart and just look incompetent? I mean, this just like because no matter what happens now, Biden is going to look worse than Trump, no matter what happens, honestly, especially now that he's like, well, I'm backing out on my commitment to get rid of this national security threat. I'm not going to bother shutting it down. This is harmful to you, my fellow Americans, according to me, but I'm okay if it doesn't go away. That can't be true. Like, if you really believe TikTok was a danger to you and your children, you would get rid of it right away. But nope, that's actually how I never believed that it was a danger in the first place, because you wouldn't wait a year to get rid of something that was an actual national security threat, right?
It's funny, TJ, like when we were talking on Tuesday, we're like, I guess we'll talk about this. And then it kind of just came into clarity what all our topics would be today. And we knew the Gaza deal was coming, but like, there's just such a clear through line in all of our topics of utter incompetence from Joe Biden. And we're going to be talking about his legacy later, but like this, the Gaza deal, everything, it's just incompetence. It is an inability to think about how your actions actually impact the world. Because you're right, like there should have been a contingency plan, but there also should have been a contingency plan for if Joe Biden is too old to run, or if his approval rating is too far down for him to win again, or if any of these things are true. There should be a contingency plan if you aren't able to lock up Donald Trump. There should be a contingency plan if he runs again. There never fucking was. There was never any changes of strategy ever. There wasn't a contingency plan for if Trump won, because they're just continuing to do the same bullshit they already did. Like I made a thread today and I was like, it is insane. If they lost the House, the Senate, and the presidency, they lost the whole damn trifecta. If this were a football season, that means they went fucking defeated. They didn't win a single game. Can you fucking imagine if your favorite football team went 0-17 and then the head coach, the GM, and the quarterback all kept their jobs? It would never fucking happen. But here we are. We have the same leadership making the same dumbass decisions with there seems to be no more urgency for change. It's like they just weather the storm and they're like right back to their old bullshit. And it's so frustrating that this is the world we have to fucking live in.
Yeah.
What do you think, Rio?
No, amen to all of that. That's exactly how I feel. I have nothing to add.
Yeah. This and not only do they keep everybody, but they says we're not even going to bother changing strategy. This is going to be exactly the same. In fact, if you criticize us, you're the problem. That's something that I'm not surprised that this happened, but you knew it was going to, right? Like you knew that if the Democrats
I had a little bit of hope. I genuinely had hope after the election, TJ. I know I'm a fucking Charlie Brown kicking the goddamn football, but I did have hope.
No, but it's like because during the entire time, it started out like during the debate. Really, the debate is really when it started cascading down, when anyone with a pair of eyes said, wow, that was a really bad performance. And then you had people saying, no, it was actually good. He actually won. He won because Trump lied. So that means Biden won, because that's how debates work. Debates are honesty competitions, right? And whoever tells the truth gets the most support. And it's like, folks, that's not what's happening. It's not what's going on. I mean, you saw the reaction from the pundits, from the people, the snap polls they took all showed Biden lost. And what you saw was, honestly, what we saw during the debates answered a lot of questions that are suspicions that we had. Because John and I would always talk about how Biden could have done the same victory laps like the ones that Trump did about the economy or the metrics like unemployment or the stock market. Trump did that Biden was never doing that. It's like, why isn't he on TV every day saying this? Well, now we know why. Now we know exactly why, because he couldn't string sentences together. And it's like, okay, this guy's not up for it. And still, like influencers and pundits were all saying, you guys are going to be the reason that he loses. When Harris started saying, well, I really love the fact that Dick Cheney supports me, and let's campaign with Liz Cheney. Let's say we need a lethal military to fight the Hamas threat. It's like, this isn't going to help. And when we said that, we were yelled at. It's like, okay, well, folks, this is what happens. And do you want to keep losing? Because it sure as hell looks that way.
It looks like they do want to lose. Like, I mean, maybe this is way too fucking simplistic, but the oligarchs behind the Democratic Party, which I feel are essentially kind of controlling where the Democratic Party goes as far as its agenda and its platforms, they are okay with Trump winning. That's kind of like, it seems like they are more afraid of the left and scooting at all to the left. They would rather let like intentionally, I don't know, I don't want to say controlled opposition. I know that people have strong feelings about controlled opposition, but god damn, it's something like that because it's so bad and so wrong and so like intentionally, it looks intentionally evil sometimes, you know, or at least contrived in a way that it's like they know that they could do better and they know how, but they don't. Anyway, does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, Rio. It's actually, I love that you mentioned the terms oligarchs and controlled opposition, because someone else mentioned the term oligarchs yesterday evening, and that was Joseph Robinette Biden. And
very funny, very funny.
It was very funny because he said essentially that, oh, we have this dangerous rise of oligarchs controlling America, right? And you know what? Fine, I agree with you. I disagree with you on the timing of that. I feel like it's been a while coming, but yeah, it's getting worse right now. I agree with you, Joe. Here's my thing. If you think it's so dangerous, what the fuck have you been doing about it for the past 4 years? Like, stop it. Like, what is the point? If you keep telling people about how dangerous the Republicans are and then just don't do extreme shit to combat that extreme danger, you look like a passive fucking idiot. Well, either you don't know how to beat the danger, which is bad, you aren't capable of beating the danger, which is maybe worse, or, as you just said, Rio, you aren't actually trying to beat the danger, you are controlled opposition to it. And I really feel like that's an overused framework of understanding by the left. I feel like we jump to that way too quickly when analyzing the actions of Democrats. But god damn it, does that not like, that was my immediate fucking reaction, was like, this reeks of controlled opposition.
I think that Democrats know very well and oligarchs know very well that they know how to inspire the base. They saw Bernie Sanders do all of this shit and it did not go unnoticed. They ignored him in the media and all this stuff, but they all saw, holy shit, this guy's raising money for like $2 a donation or whatever. Holy crap, this guy is changing politics. They know that if they adopt progressive policies, they will have a blue wave. If they really truly wanted to win, if the party wanted to like become powerful and start winning elections, they know that adopting more progressive platforms is in fact the way to do that. They know it. The oligarchs know it. I think the party knows it. But they do not do that. They do not do the fucking thing that would make them win. That's why it looks like controlled opposition. You know what? I mean, TJ, what do you think about controlled opposition? Is that too much to say?
So,
Wait,
yeah,
TJ, before I want you to answer that question, but I want to just mention, since he brought up Bernie, a poll came out today from Morning Consult. Bernie has a 69% approval rating with a 27% disapproval rating. That's in fucking insane numbers. Yeah. And the everyone who's like, oh no, the Democrats are good. No, fuck you. No, that it could not be more clear what the people want right now. Anyway, what were you gonna say, TJ?
Well, I don't go all in on controlled opposition. I get it. Not for like the party as a whole. I think that there are maybe some people that could apply to, but the party as a whole, I can't quite get there. Although it's getting hard to argue against it, I have to say. But it's because, well, there's a few reasons for it. The first is that as a politician, your number one goal is to get elected, right? Like that's it. Like you wouldn't be there unless you wanted that. Your number two goal is to make yourself wealthy and powerful, right? Which kind of coincide with winning. Losing doesn't do a lot for you. If you're running that it's harder to raise money when you lost, and it's harder to raise money when your party isn't in power. So what I think is that they're facing this catch-22, that they actually do want to win. And like John said, they know what's popular with the base, but they also know that the person who raises the most money almost always wins. They know that. And the easiest way to get money is to take corporate donations. And when you take corporate donations, you have to back corporate policy. And if you abandon those corporate policies, you lose the corporate donations and risk what Bernie did. Now, Bernie's always been an independent. He's been independent for 45 years. These folks haven't. And so if they drop out and say, well, we're not taking corporate cash, that's a big gamble. Someone else could outspend you and then they could win. I think that's actually what's going on. And also they just don't believe this. Like they don't want like you guys said, they don't want the progressive policies either. But I don't think that they actually want Republicans to win. Then you just be Republican. That'd be a lot easier, right? Than actually running as a Democrat just to get Republican policy passed.
I don't think the Democrats themselves consciously want Republicans to win. I think they're kind of like more inside of it, and they are convinced of the whole illusion of it. But I think the oligarchs themselves are okay with the Republicans winning. That's
100%.
Even the ones behind the Democratic Party, even the Democratic oligarchs. I think you're too optimistic, dude. I guess I'm a little bit more cynical than you when it comes to because you're kind of assuming that politicians like organically like want to go into politics to win and like do but I kind of see it like sometimes like corporations run them like players on the field. Like they almost like hire guys and have them go out like actors defending like apologists for corporations, and they'll just find some fucking weirdo and like fund him and like tell him to keep running until they have somebody like Ted Cruz who's a complete fucking psychopath. You know what I mean? So does that make sense? Am I making sense right now?
No, I mean I don't think that's. Oh, were you saying something, John?
No, I have a response, but go ahead and finish.
I just feel like you're saying that like there's these like authentic careers and they just kind of have to do these things because of pragmatism. That's kind of what you're saying. But I don't even know if the careers are fucking authentic. Do you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying.
So I don't know. You're right. I don't know that. I don't assume anyone who goes into politics, especially at that high level, automatically does so out of the goodness of their heart, right? Like I think that I think the desire for power is what they crave. That's what they want. And being in Congress or in the Senate or whatever high level politics comes with that sort of power, and that's what they need. To get that, there's only one venue, and so like it's kind of like how people wonder why everyone who works at news organizations seems to have like the same type of mindset. And it's kind of, it self-selects for those people. Those people wouldn't be there if they didn't have that mindset. And even if someone goes in with good intentions, because like obviously not everyone who gets into politics is, just a living example of the banality of evil. You can look at even like Nancy Pelosi. If you look at stuff Nancy Pelosi said in the 70s, it's very progressive. If you look at what Hillary Clinton was saying in the 90s, very progressive. And then as time goes on, I think that the system, they know, wow, if I'm going to stay here, I got to play ball, and you become the monster, whether you want to or not. That's why, like, people always like, oh, you guys should run for office and everything. We'd end up the same way. Like, we'd end up the same way, and we wouldn't be there. It's one or the other. And so I don't think it really matters, like, if they're good people on the inside or not with authenticity. I think that the system only produces one type of person.
My issue with the controlled opposition narrative is that I think it doesn't accurately reflect the incentive structures at work, because for anyone who's listening who has never heard this term before, it's something that is talked about on the left quite a bit, about how Democrats, liberals in general, are controlled opposition. They are playing a role. There isn't actually two opposing parties. There is one party with half of them playing the good guys and half of them playing the bad guys. And we're, from whichever perspective you are in America, you're rooting for one side or the other. But really, marginally things are going to change. But at the end of the day, things are going to more or less remain the same. Evidence to this theory would be when Joe Biden told donors as he was running in 2020, don't worry, guys, everything will fundamentally stay the same. He said this. This is a matter of fact, right? So I do think that a lot of times when leftists talk about it, they're a little bit more cynical. They think that this is just like one entity and another entity interacting, when in actuality, it is hundreds and honestly thousands of people at work here, all interacting with each other, all of which have their own incentive structures at play. When I will be more likely to accept that kind of analysis is when you get to the president of the United States, because the president of the United States does have the power to say, go fuck yourself. Bernie has the power to say, go fuck yourself most of the time. And he does. And when he needs to circle the wagons in order to like be able to exert power later, he will do that for the Democratic Party. But Joe Biden doesn't have any masters. Like, he can do whatever he wants. And he has chosen to operate in the way that he has. He has chosen to do this whole fucking TikTok song and dance, knowing, apparently, either knowing that this is where it would end or not knowing that this is where it would end. And both scenarios look terrible on him. Like, either he knows that at the end of the day, he's going to fold if they call his bluff, which they said they would, and that it's going to make him look really bad and it's going to hand a victory to Donald Trump, or he didn't know that they would call his bluff, and that's just fucking incompetence. So like, I don't know, Rio. I don't think that necessarily, like what a lot of people say, like, oh, it's a uniparty, whatever. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think the world is significantly better with Democrats in charge. I think there's a lot of evidence to this point. And I think if you look at the actions of individual Democrats and individual Republicans for that matter, such as, I know, but if you look at like when shit gets really, really real, occasionally they will vote their conscience. Like, for example, John McCain with the Affordable Care Act. And that's true. You could argue that corporations have benefited from the Affordable Care Act, and that's why that ended up happening. But you do see moments of humanity, and that's why I don't think it's that conspiratorial. I think there's a lot of incentive structures at plays that happen to play Democrats the same way they play Republicans, and that's why they often tend to arrive at the same conclusions.
I think there is authentic. I want to be clear. I do think there is authenticity. I mean, you hear like AOC talk about the consolidation of billionaires and stuff, and how they're getting, how they're in bed with blah blah blah. So anyway, that's authentic. I just think that there's basically a wall that they run into on the left where they're just not allowed to be any more progressive with policy. That's all I'm saying. So
I agree.
100% true.
I think the controlled opposition definitely plays in that venue, because they're like how there's always some sort of rotating villain in the Senate that's always stopping the policies. Like, Sinema and Manchin are going to be the sacrificial lamb, saying, man, I wish I could raise minimum wage, but Manchin, what are we going to do about him? And or
Fetterman's setting himself up nice and pretty for that role.
Fetterman's the next on the agenda here, and it's that I think that there's more senators than Manchin, Sinema, and now Fetterman who have more conservative ideologies than they let on, but they don't have to say it because they know that someone else is going to step in. I 100% believe that. Yeah, they don't want universal health care either. So, that's going to get in their way for that. One of the topic, I don't think we have another time to talk about it because it may not apply anymore, but I put in the title about Red Note, so we kind of have to mention it. And so did either of you sign up for Red Note? For those of you who don't know what Red Note is like a Chinese version of TikTok, which sounds redundant, I know, but TikTok is not actually TikTok is not used in China. They use an app called Red Note. I forgot the Chinese word for it, but it translates, by the way, to Little Red Book, like Mao's Little Red Book, which is very funny. And 500,000 Americans have signed up for this app over the course of this last week. And you got to listen. I did not sign up for Red Note, primarily because I just don't feel like it. I don't feel like signing up for a brand new app that's literally foreign to me. And like, it's in Chinese. Like the interface is in Chinese and all. Come on, I don't want to do it that badly. But a lot of Americans have. And we'll start with you, Rio. Have you signed up for Red Book, and do you plan on it?
So I think I'm
sorry, Red Note. Red Note. I keep saying Red Book. It's Red Note. My fault.
It's okay. Yeah, it means Little Red Book, like you said. I can't remember if I made an account, but I will make an account if I haven't yet. I spent like 5 hours on it, scrolling and looking around. It's not really so much like TikTok. It's more like Chinese Pinterest, but they're trying to basically accommodate us and make it a little bit more like TikTok. There's a lot of like problems, and we can get into this whenever you want, but like the community guide the community guidelines for Red Note are literally just like the guidelines that the government gives to its citizens to in China. So you have to support socialism. Okay, you can't criticize their form of government. You can't criticize Xi. Like it's if you go and look at the community guidelines, it's pretty heavy. So the point is, it's never gonna be like TikTok. So we are like going into someone else's living room, and we're sitting down with them at dinner time, and we're kind of listening to them speak and like getting a vibe for the family. This is a whole new people. If you port over your data, your videos and your content, you're literally sending your videos to China, to their most popular social hub, to be played in their public square. Like totally different location than you. It's nothing really like this has ever happened, by the way. It's like a literal migration. It's pretty interesting, but you can't criticize stuff. So it's not like all these deconstructionist TikTokers that have been so contrarian can go over there and start doing content. You know what I mean? So that's I think it's cool that it's happening.
Mhm.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah, Rio, to add on to that, I agree with TJ. I'm not gonna fucking use it. Like if by some miracle it like becomes a thing, I'll use it. But like it's in fucking Chinese, bro. Like we can't get
Well,
a
there's a lot of
critical mass of
English.
Americans
There
to
is a lot of
use.
English on there. Like there you have all these Chinese people that are like making videos. Welcome to you Americans. Please don't show your boobs. Like I seriously watched.
Don't show your boobs.
They're like, they're like, they're like, you can celebrate your body, but don't be like, crazy about it. And I'm like,
Oh,
and I'm like,
man.
I don't know if you guys know Chinese culture at all. Not that I super know it, but like I know that they're very sometimes like socially rigid about their norms. They seem to tend to be like conservative, very proper. They're a very beautiful, prideful people, prideful in a good way, like in their culture and stuff. So you go over there, dude, and you get that. They tell you what their norms are, and so they don't really tolerate a lot of this stuff. Anyway, I interrupted you, man. Keep going, John.
No, it's totally fine. And that's the cool part about this story for me is that forever China and America have existed in walled gardens. Like there's not actually that much. The most communication you have between Chinese people and Americans are Chinese students coming here to study, and then occasionally American expats going over there to do business. But there's no sort of like when I said critical mass for a social media app, that's more than 500,000 people. That's 500 million people. But like in terms of the amount of interaction with Chinese people and Americans so far, 500,000 in the span of 24 hours is insane. And it is very interesting to see people reacting to this because they're seeing, and this is the massive fuck up by the US government, to be perfectly honest. I think that there's a tendency on the left to be like China good guy, US bad guy, and that is definitely fucking incorrect. But like Chinese people, normal guys. American people, normal guys. Like these are just normal people. And there is this idea of China, I feel like, in the average American's mind of China being this like North Korea, honestly. Like I feel like most like the average American, if you were like going to say what is China closer to, North Korea or America, they'd go North Korea. And in some ways that's the case, but if you look at like the average life of a Chinese person, it's not all that different than your and mine. And that's the problem with 500,000 Americans joining a Chinese lifestyle app is that they're seeing, oh shit, these people live a life that's virtually identical to mine with a different language. Like, that's it. And they're seeing some of the propaganda that America has exposed us to about the Chinese people to maybe be wrong. And they're getting hit with Chinese propaganda. Like, again, there is a middle ground here between the two. Both sides are bad, right? But like, yeah, humanizing the Chinese people is the last thing the American government wanted to do, and they just accidentally butt fuck themselves into it. And that is, if there is any lasting impact of this Red Note thing, I think it's a flash in the pan. I think we're gonna forget this ever happened like 2 months from now. But it is neat. I'm enjoying seeing people's experience. Am I going to use the app? Fuck no, because I don't have the time to do social media for myself any more than I already do. But and it's not going to work for my political content. It just fucking ain't.
That's right.
But
That's
like,
right. Yeah.
I think it's cool. I think it's a cool thing that's happening. I think it's the funniest possible outcome.
Exactly.
Banning the TikTok is for Americans to fly to like. There's so many things that happen nowadays that it's just like, oh, if you wrote this in a movie, no one would believe it. Yeah, the app's called Mao's Little Red Book, and that's what they're choosing. Like, of fucking course it is.
It's fantastic. Hey, it is funny that like the tip of the spear that the United States government was saying why everyone needs to be afraid of TikTok is because the Chinese government is stealing your data, only to find out that 500,000 people in a couple of days said, take my data, please, Chinese government. Here it is. Hey, you can have it all. It's like, oh, they don't really care because they know their data is being stolen by someone anyway. So, well, what does it matter what country the person's in? And the thing, what is it? John was talking about how, the interface is a lot of Chinese. And Rio, you said that you actually downloaded it. You said, well, it's not all in Chinese. Rio, any Chinese is too much Chinese for your average American. They're not going to do that. They're not going to, like, it's going to look confusing and intimidating.
Americans barely understand English, Rio. We read at a 6th grade reading level. There's no way that the Chinese app is going to take off.
People are doing AI.
My fucking life. On at least as it currently is. That app ain't going anywhere in America.
Yeah.
The Rio, part of the lore of this show, back before I was a regular host on the show, I was a recurring guest. And we also had fellow content creator Leah on. And it was me, Leah, John, and Erica. And Leah brought up the fact that the United States has something like a 71% literacy rate. And I remember none of us believed it. And John actually Googled it. And sure enough, like the United States has, right? We were stunned. We were absolutely stunned, but it's true. Our literacy rate in this country is in the 70s. So yeah, John's right. Our English isn't great. Our Chinese isn't much better, I guarantee. And the
I'm going to exemplify why what we're saying is 100% true. We've been referring to it as Chinese. That is not the language. There's
Mandarin,
different Chinese languages. And we've just been like, Chinese.
Yeah, I think the primary
we are the culturally respectful people.
Right, yeah. So I was going to mention that I have been to China. Between my sophomore and junior year of college, I worked in China for a few months. And like the primary dialects, I think, are Mandarin and Cantonese, I think. I mean, don't quote me on that, folks. But the interaction with people in China were fantastic. They were amazing folks. It was interesting getting used to the cultural differences. Like in China, it is not rude to point and stare at people. So if you're walking down a road anywhere and you're not a Chinese person, it's very obvious you're not. You will have dozens of people just pointing and staring at you. And you look them in the eye, they keep staring. It's like, because that's not culture. The only time I wasn't pointed at and stared at in China was this one time, this military, like Chinese military had these basketball teams. And there was a guy there who was like 6'11". And I remember walking through the only Walmart in China at the time. Everyone was pointing at him. No one was looking at me. When you had like a 6'11" dude walking around, that was pretty wild. But I wanted to talk to what John mentioned, that the conception that your average American has about China, you're right. They think it's like North Korea. They say the communist red Chinese have everyone under lock and key. There's going to be armed guards at every store. People are living. No, honestly, besides the fact that everyone was Chinese, it was hard to tell the difference, honestly, between like what life was like in the United States and what life was like in China. The first cultural shock I got was when I was in Beijing and we landed and went to this hotel. And the next morning, we got up. I was with a group of Americans, and we went downstairs to the lobby. And the host said, "Okay, so breakfast is served in that room over there. And we know you guys are American, so we prepared an American breakfast for you on the left side of the room. On the right side of the room, there's Chinese breakfast. So you guys can take your pick, whatever you want." And I'm thinking the same thing you guys are thinking right now. I have no idea what Chinese breakfast food looks like. No clue at all. And so, of course, we all went to the right side of the room to get the Chinese breakfast food. Turns out exactly the same as the Chinese food that I saw everywhere. It was like it was rice and veggies and like strips of pork and chicken. I said, I looked around to make sure it wasn't just me. We all had the same thoughts. Like, now I'm sure in Chinese it looks different. To me, it looked exactly the same. Yeah, it looked exactly the same as all the Chinese food I'd known in my life. So that was kind of disappointing, but it was a fun experience. And the propaganda, I can't remember which one of you mentioned the propaganda angle, but I saw a really great post by someone who was on Red Note where they asked the question and they said, "Hey, do Americans actually have to pay for their ambulance rides, or is that government propaganda?" Like, no, that's true. That's real. Like that, the Chinese government may lie. They're not lying about the ambulance thing. We do have to pay for our own ambulances. So yeah, the Red Note thing, I agree, John. I think it's kind of a flash in the pan, like an obvious one. Like I don't know. I think it's an obvious one. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, but
TJ,
I just don't think
it's weird how people act like we haven't seen this before, like a million
we
times.
see it all the time.
I swear to God, like it's just like the people who are saying, "Oh, this is gonna catch on," like I'm like, really? Like I want it beyond all God to catch on. Sure, let's do it, but like it's not, and it's not. So why are you acting like it is? This is just confusing.
I still haven't heard if people can make money on Red Note. So like if people can't make any money from their content.
Can we make money anywhere else, Rio? I haven't heard.
Funny. That's funny. Yeah, it's just like, if it's not monetizable and you're doing it for the love of the game. I do think that you guys are absolutely right that the lasting effect of it will be like cross-cultural ties, because out of these 500,000 or million people, whoever sign up over the next week or so, a lot of people are going to form friendships and relationships and get to know people for years on end. And I think that's good. The more communication, like John said, the more communication we have with regular people across the world, I think the better place the world is. Unfortunately, we have a tendency to dehumanize people who aren't exactly like us. We see it every day, and this is a good step in the right direction.
If you made it to this point in the video, congratulations. You were probably teased about Joe Biden's legacy, or you heard our thoughts on it, and you probably could have guessed them. It wasn't a very surprising episode of all that we teased, but what was surprising is the excellent moral conversations we had with our wonderful guest, Rio. If you want to hear more from him, Rio, where can people find you?
Just on TikTok, at Nathan Rio. I should have given you guys the little thing, at Nathan Rio on TikTok.
I'd say fuck it, we'll fix it in post, but we're not.
We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. This show used to look a lot slicker. We're like, no, we're posting this shit. But hey, we appreciate you guys watching. Thanks so much for your support. We look forward to seeing you in the future, either here on YouTube or on TikTok. We're still around. If not, you can find Rio at least over at Red Note, Xiao Hong Shu, or whatever in Chinese. We'll catch you, whatever, folks. Later.